learning will only get you so far. So let's talk transformation. One of my favorite quotes is, when you know something, you do it. Otherwise, it's just some interesting stuff that you heard. Now, this is really fascinating, and it's something that I have lived by for quite a few years now. And just to start with, I want to take you back, because if we'd crossed paths before 2016, you would have met a very different person than who you see or hear in this case right now. And you might know some people that are a bit like how I was back in that time. And in that space, although you know not everything is how you want it to be, and you're probably not getting the kind of results that you'd hope for, whether that be in relationships or your health or your career or your finances, whatever that might be, you might be listening to loads of podcasts or audiobooks and doing meditations. You might even be doing loads of courses or going to seminars and really hoping and praying that the next thing you hear or learn will be the thing that changes everything. And because you're doing all of these things and you're learning all this stuff, you feel like you're doing the work on yourself. And this is something that I hear all of the time. And, when people come to, see me or talk to me and find out about what they do, they say, I've been doing a lot of work on myself for a long time. Now, the problem is you don't know what you don't know. So there is so much that's outside of your conscious awareness, and it can seem like there are so many reasons why change isn't possible for you. So you're learning all these things, but nothing's changing. So maybe it's because of your childhood. Maybe it's because of where you grew up or what happened in your family, or maybe it's because of your workplace and what opportunities are available. Maybe it's because of your relationship and your partner and whatever they do, say, whatever that might be. Maybe it's because you've got kids and whatever age your kids are. Maybe it's because of the government or the weather or your financial position, right? There can be all of these reasons why we think that things aren't changing. And the problem is, it doesn't matter how much you learn, you still don't seem to be making any great kind of change. And this is what I want to talk about today, because there is a big difference between learning and transformation. Now, don't get me wrong, learning is very interesting, and I am definitely a committed lifelong learner. And the thing, though, with a lot of learning is that it's very tick and flick. Here's the content, comprehend it, answer some kind of test, whatever. We are able to repeat it, talk about it. And it's often very stimulating, and for most people, very rewarding. Learning is usually very rewarding, and it does normally lead to some type of growth. And because growth and contribution are the two most important needs, so that we keep learning and growing and contributing to others, it fulfills us, it fulfills our two most important human needs. Learning something, though, without application rarely leads to any lasting value. And that's why we really want to move out of learning mode and into transformation mode. And this applies to you, and it also applies to your clients. So transformation is something that happens when, there is a change in perspective. All right. So you would have had a moment of transformation at some time in your life before. And when there's transformation, there's actually a change in your neurology. There's a change in your model of the world. There's a change in how you perceive reality. Usually, though, transformation only happens for people under some kind of pressure, or most often than not, something really bad happens and you have no choice, or you have a choice, but the other choice is just not something you want to contemplate. Or the other way that transformation happens is over long periods of time. So over long periods of time, people have more time to have different experiences. They experience different consequences and different outcomes. They meet different people, and they have seen enough patterns and learned enough things and seen what transpires from those things to gradually shift that perspective. Now, the problem is if you're going to wait a long time, we're only here for a limited amount of time, right? And if you get out to age 90 feeling like you finally have all the answers to the world, you might be leaving a little bit late. So it's a good idea if you understand how to create transformation now. Now, transformation happens as a result of your nervous system needing to create new neural pathways, usually to deal with a different environment. So it's one of those things, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So usually you need to create a different kind of environment, and then you're under pressure and you need to change things. Or, something terrible happens, like, a relationship ends, or there's a health problem or something like that. And then there's a very different set of circumstances, and bang, you need to change neurology and make some kind of change. But there is another option. And recently I delivered a 2-week NLP Master Practitioner training. And part of that training is that the students go through a complete breakthrough process. Now, if you're unfamiliar with NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it essentially is a study of the mind and the nervous system and how we process information through our 5 senses. It's a study of language and communication and how we communicate both verbally and non-verbally with ourselves and others. And programming is essentially the study of the programs or the strategies that we consistently run to create these consistent outcomes. Now, why it's so important to understand this, it's like having a user manual for the human mind. Why it's so important to understand this is because when you understand how the mind works at that very, very deep level, you can create shifts in perspective purposefully and quickly. And that leads to very, very deep transformation. And transformation creates results very, very fast. And the really important thing about transformation is that once you've had a transformation, you do not forget it. It's changed your neurology. You just have a different lens that you're looking through the world now. Whereas learning, if you don't apply it, you don't use it, you lose it, right? It disappears. It fades off into not being important anymore. Now, NLP Master Practitioner Training, as I said, an important part of this is that the students experience a breakthrough process. And it's not just about learning how to do a breakthrough. They experience being a client and having their own breakthrough, as well as being a practitioner and taking a client through a live breakthrough process. So we don't do any role modeling. It's all real life, live transformation that happens. And as a result of this, the students have an incredible shift in perspective for themselves personally, as well as understanding how to best help someone experience their own breakthrough. And the reason that this is so powerful is that going through this process maps out very clearly and precisely what your current model of the world is, what your current perspectives are. What are the current lenses that you are viewing the world through? What are the patterns that have been playing out over the years? And you can see very clearly how you're creating the current problem or situation that you have. And then from there, you can get very clear about what you want to create. And when you do that, it's obvious you can recognize the gap between where you've been and where you're going. And from there, it's quite simple to release all of the old emotional baggage and, really clean up those filters and get aligned in your values and move into that new perspective, that new reality, that new model of the world, where you then create the results that you want to have. So this is why a process such as this is deeply transformative, because it shifts your perspective on reality. It allows you to see what your current reality is from the perspective of how are you creating it and exactly what needs to change. Now, the problem most people have is that they have learned what they should be doing, right? But they haven't had the perspective change that empowers them to create the transformation. As I said, once real transformation happens, there's no going back. Okay, it's a bit like, if you've got a pair of stretchy pants, right? And then they get stretched beyond, you've washed them and tumble dried them several times and they've been your favorite pants and you've worn them until the elastic's gone, right? There's no going back. You can put them through the tumble dryer on extra hot or whatever you want to do. They're not going to go back to how they were. Now, I'm not saying you want to transform like a pair of stretchy pants, but the analogy of that is still that you want to create a transformation where you have changed, your neurology has changed, which means you're not just going to simply forget what you've learned. It means you're going to be a different person. And this applies to you as much as it does as to when you're working with your clients. So if you have a program or a system that just teaches people new ideas and new concepts and behaviors, they will have limited success. Because if all they're doing is learning these things, but they're not changing their perspective, then they will eventually stop doing those things. Okay, and this is what we see, with people that have go to the gym for a 6-week challenge, right? Or they go into some, 8-week health transformation kind of process. And sure, they learn lots of really interesting things and they get all of this is what you need to do day by day by day. These are the things you need to eat. These are the exercises you need to do. And you're doing this for 8 weeks. If you're doing anything for 8 weeks, what it suggests is after 8 weeks, you're either going to go back to doing what you did before or some other kind of version of it. Okay, it's not transformation. What you need to be able to do when you're working with people, if you really want to help them create change, significant change, lasting change, is to help them change their model of the world through creating a shift in their perspective on reality. And when you can do that, they won't just change for a little while, they will transform. And this always comes back to be, do, have. I talk about this to my students all the time, be, do, have. You see, most people think that when they have a certain result, then they'll do all of the things and they'll feel like the person that has that result. But it just doesn't work that way. And this is the problem with learning, is that generally learning only focuses on what you're doing. And if you only focus on what you're doing in order to have different results, those results are going to be limited. Transformation comes from identifying who you are being and then shifting your perspectives on who you're being. So cleaning up your lenses, getting rid of all those old negative emotions, limiting beliefs, cleaning up all your values so that you don't have a bunch of stuff that you're trying to avoid all the time that keeps steering you off track. And when you do that, you're going to change your neurology and who you are being. You're going to view the world through a different lens. You'll have a different perspective. And when you transform like that, when you shift your perspective in that kind of way, when you help your clients shift their perspective, what actually happens is that they view the world in a different way. They respond to the world in a different way. naturally, not by having to consistently remind themselves, but they'll naturally respond to the world in a different way. And so when you have information come to you, the world happens around you, you take that information in, you analyze it, you feel different, you think about it different, and therefore you have different behaviors. When you have different behaviors, you have different results. And that is something that happens automatically when you've had a transformation. So I would love to know, leave a comment on this one. Have you had a moment of transformation? Was it something that you did willingly? So was it something that you did, like you went and learned NLP or timeline therapy or something like that? Or worked with a coach who did those kinds of things? And did you intentionally change your world and transform your world? Or was it something that happened suddenly and out of the blue that forced you to transform? Maybe you've had both. But I can tell you, having years of experience with this, is that comes back to that old thing of, if you do what's hard now, the rest of your life will be easy. And if you do what's easy now, the rest of your life will be hard. And unfortunately, a lot of people put off having the transformation because they're afraid of really doing the deep work and taking full responsibility for themselves. And it can be challenging. It can be uncomfortable. Even in my master practitioner training, I had students tell me, you know what, there were parts of that were uncomfortable, but it's worth it, because the change they've had in perspective means that their life is now so much easier. It's so much easier to create the results that you want to have. And this is the kind of work that you want to be able to do with your own clients. So really think about that. Am I just teaching people things, or am I focused on creating transformations? Now, as an NLP Master Trainer, I am obsessed with how the mind works. And I go deep into working with people to help them release their old childhood wounds. And I've just launched a membership group that you can join on Facebook called the Coaching Circle Insiders, where each week I'll be going live and answering all of your questions about personal development, coaching, communication, spirituality, transformation. And it's really for people who want to evolve to their next level in life and business, and who really want to be able to help other people, because that is one of those things that I'm passionate about, is helping people who help other people. Because, if we all work on ourselves in a way that allows us to show up in a more congruent way and have a positive impact on other people, this whole planet can change much faster than what you would ever think. So check out the link below. There's a special launch that's happening for this group, and it's going to be 50% off. And I can tell you, I'll put a link for you, the amount of value that's in this Facebook group is off the charts. And it's going to be just a fraction of what it would cost for you to work with a coach or be in any other kind of coaching program that is going around. So check that link out. And remember, the thing is, when you transform your reality, creating what you want requires less effort. It changes who you are being so that you are naturally doing the things that will result in you having the outcomes that you want in a consistent and sustainable way. And when you can do that for yourself, you can help other people do that. And that is when you will step into a place of fulfillment, business, life, everything feels easier, and you really know that you're on track.